You know, it's funny how the simplest stories often hold the most profound truths. Today, we're going to dive into one of those stories, a tale about a village, a temple, and a pretty terrible secret. Okay, let's get into this because what it reveals about belief, power, and the mechanics of fear itself is, well, it's fundamental.
It begins, like all good stories do, with a simple sentence. A long time ago, there was a small village. But this simple beginning, believe me, it sets the stage for a very, very complex human drama. Now, before we go any further, I want to introduce a key concept.
I know, that sounds super academic, right? But stick with me here. This idea that systems of magic or sorcery aren't just random nonsense, but that they actually find their logic during times of crisis and social breakdown, that is the absolute key to understanding everything that happens next in our story.
So, let's get back to the village. Near this village stood an ancient temple, the Kal Bhairav Mandir. And the villagers? They were terrified of it. They truly believed a powerful, maybe even vengeful deity lived inside its walls. And this wasn't just some vague, spooky feeling. It literally shaped their entire existence.
And right at the heart of all this fear was this dark tradition. Every single year, during a huge fair, a sacrifice was made to the temple. The children were terrified, the adults were grim, but nobody really knew why this ritual had to be performed. It was just the way things were, a tradition born completely out of fear.
But then, one day, someone dares to ask a question. A young, curious boy named Arjun asks his grandfather something so simple but so revolutionary. Why? And with that one little word, the foundation of the village's fear starts to crack. His grandfather, after a long pause, decides it's time to tell him the story.
And wow, what a story it is. He explains that generations ago, the village was happy, prosperous, the rains always came on time, the crops were amazing. But then, one year, everything changed. A terrible drought hit. The river dried up, the fields turned to dust, and people actually started to starve. And in their desperation, this mysterious sadhu, a holy man with these piercing, shining eyes, arrives. He doesn't offer comfort, he offers an explanation. He says the village is cursed. The only solution? An annual sacrifice. Having no other choice, the villagers agreed. And the very next day, it rained.
And this is where that academic concept clicks right into place. That drought in the story, it wasn't just a weather event. It was a complete breakdown of everyday life, a crisis, a blockage. These are the exact conditions that anthropological research tells us are the perfect breeding ground for beliefs in curses and magic to take root. The sadhu didn't create the crisis, but he sure knew how to exploit it.
And this just brilliantly illustrates the two-faced nature of the sorcerer figure, something we see in traditions all over the world. They're often called Janus-faced. So to the desperate villagers, the sadhu was a protector, right? A savior whose ritual brought the rain. But at the same time, he was also a destroyer, the one who introduced a permanent state of fear into their lives, a fear that would last for generations.
Which brings us right back to Arjun. After hearing this whole story, he's left with this huge question just hanging in the air. Was the rain a miracle, or was it just a coincidence? Is this entire tradition built on truth, or is it really just a story designed to create fear?
And the power of stories to shape our reality is just immense. It's not just a quaint idea. This study, for instance, found a direct correlation between children who listen to stories and their capacity for moral judgment. It's like stories are the software we use to run our moral and ethical hardware. And this isn't some new discovery. In many cultures, and especially in Indian knowledge systems, storytelling has never been just for entertainment. It's a primary teaching tool, a way to teach really complex ideas about leadership, ethics, and how society should work. The story of the curse was teaching the villagers something too. It was teaching them how to be afraid.
So Arjun, now armed with his skepticism, decides he can't just accept the story. He has to find the truth. So on the day of the great fair, as the drums are beating and the whole village is gathered in this atmosphere just thick with fear, he does something no one has ever dared to do. He slips away and enters the dreaded Kal Bhairav temple.
Inside, in the darkness, he confronts the sadhu, and he asks him directly, is the sacrifice truly necessary? And the sadhu laughs this chilling laugh before confessing the secret that has held the village captive for years. No, it is only fear.
And there it is. It was never about magic. It was all about control. This slide basically breaks down the sadhu's brilliant and frankly terrifying playbook. First, find a community in crisis, the drought. Then give them an external enemy to blame, a curse. Next, offer a solution that only you can provide, the ritual sacrifice. And the result? You gain absolute power. You become a god in their eyes because you control the one thing they want, a solution to their fear.
See, understanding the trick is the first step to breaking the spell. Armed with this devastating truth, Arjun runs out of the temple. He doesn't fight the Sadi with weapons or with magic. He fights him with information. He tells everyone what he heard.
At first, of course, no one believed him. But when they gathered the courage to go into the temple for themselves, the sadhu was gone. And in that moment, the entire reality of the village just shifted. The fair, which was once a day of dread, became a day of true celebration, not just for the harvest, but for their victory over the fear that had ruled them for so long.
And that brings us to the end. The story of the Kal Bhairav temple isn't just some old fable about a distant village. It's a powerful metaphor. It forces us to ask, what are the curses we believe in? What are the rituals of fear that we perform without even questioning where they came from? And what truth might we find if we were just brave enough, like Arjun, to ask why?